Thank you to my patrons. Your generosity and commitment to my work is astonishing. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm very sad to report that there are thousands of stories of people dying because they went for homeopathic remedies instead of the actual conventional proven medical alternatives, the actual medicines that work. So this article is titled "Families of Cancer Patients Who Died After Rejecting Conventional Medicine to Spend Thousands on Homeopathy Blast Clinics Who Radicalized Them," with one owner recorded on camera saying, "A lump won't kill you." Christ above.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. Thank you.
Hey everybody, Magic Skeptic here, and don't worry, the video is about to begin. I just wanted to take a moment to make you aware of my Patreon, the link for which can be found in the description below. Sign up today for as little as £3 per month and you can gain access to a plethora of perks and extras, including downloadable audio-only and ad-free versions of my podcast that you can listen to on the go. You can also have your question answered in a monthly video, and better still, depending on which tier you choose, you could even sit down for a Skype call with yours truly, Magic Skeptic. All that is available and much, much more. All you got to do is click the link in the description below. I hope to see you there. Hey everybody, Magic Skeptic here, and you're all most welcome to another episode of A Magician's Thoughts. Up for today is part 2 of my expose on homeopathy. Yes, you heard that right. This is part 2. So if you missed part 1, I'm happy to report that it's available on my channel right now, and you should absolutely check that out first before you watch this episode. With that said, we're going to dive right in here today, and to do that, we are returning to that thing, that glorious channel, the home to all things homeopathy. I'm referring, of course, to the channel Faculty of Homeopathy. This channel includes all sorts of videos, including the testimony of those who claim to have had so-called miraculous cures, as well as the statements and explanations of those who claim to be homeopathic practitioners, the people who can cure illnesses and diseases using nothing other than water. So with that said, we're going to watch another gem of a video from their channel today, and I'm going to offer my critique. Let's see if there's any evidence for this homeopathy thing. All I can say is that I wouldn't hold my breath. Let's get into it. The credentials are there in the very opening. Remember what I told you. Those credentials are irrelevant. What matters is what this guy can prove. End of story.
I actually had no interest in homeopathy at all. I'm not sure I'd ever heard of it. I was just a rugby-playing cow vet on the edge of Exmoor. And I had suffered all my life from hay fever. And it was a sort of hay fever where your eyes were so itchy you just want to claw them out. And I was taking antihistamines for that for years and years and years.
You mean you were taking the conventional medicine? Oh, how silly. You know what you need? A glass of water.
I went camping in June and I forgot to take my antihistamines. And I was in a horrible mess. And maybe the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me in my life, 5 tents away, there was a woman who was a homeopath. So I was encouraged to go up to see her. And she asked me for about 20 minutes totally irrelevant questions that, as far as I could understand, had nothing to do with hay fever. And at the end of that time, she gave me 1 pill. And I said, okay, thank you. How many do I take a day? How many days do I take them for? She said, no, you just take the 1 pill. And I think I was a bit arrogant, or she told me I was afterwards, because I insisted I had to have more pills than that. She said, just take the 1. You might be an expert vet, but I'm an expert homeopath. So I took the pill. It was called Euphrasia. And to my astonishment, after an hour, my hay fever was 90% better. And in fact, from that day in 1995, I have not taken another antihistamine.
It's a miracle. His hay fever went away. Praise homeopathy. My God, why isn't this in all of our hospitals? I'll tell you why. Because hay fever can go away by itself. Hay fever can disappear. I've got a source for you. I'll pop it on the screen. This comes from the Allergy Clinic London.co.uk. The article is titled, "Is it possible that my allergy just disappeared?" Let's have a read. While we know that allergy symptoms occur when your immune system overreacts to what it considers a foreign substance, a large amount about allergies remains unknown. In a lot of ways, they're a mystery we have to either live with or we don't. Or in some cases, maybe you live with them for a season or two, and then they disappear just as stealthily as they came. But can an allergy actually disappear? A change in severity. Often, rather than disappearing altogether, what you're actually experiencing is a change in your allergy's severity. Allergies can vary massively from season to season and from allergen to allergen. One summer, your hay fever could have you struggling to leave the house, but the next, you could barely notice so much as a single sniff. Similarly, while one dog could have your eyes puffy and nose running, another could trigger no reaction whatsoever. There's no predicting what each season will bring for you and your allergies, but perhaps that's just the spontaneity you need to spice up your life. It's gone altogether. Sometimes it's assumed that people simply grow accustomed to a certain allergen, that after enough exposure, their body becomes used to it and stops overreacting to its presence. That is why some food allergies, maintaining low-level exposure and increasing this over time, can eventually encourage a tolerance. It works in a similar way to a vaccination, immunizing you to a certain virus or bacteria. Egg, milk, soy, and wheat are some of the most common allergens to outgrow, and around 20% of children with a peanut allergy will have outgrown it by the time they start school. Although, given the great risk of anaphylaxis in severe allergies, this isn't a recommended method for getting rid of allergies. And only by visiting a doctor can you confirm that an allergy has in fact been outgrown. Unfortunately, we can't tell you for certain whether your allergy is here to stay or just a temporary visitor, but by doing some research and booking yourself in for a test, you can take back control over your allergy and equip yourself with the insight needed to manage it moving forward. So guys, as you can see there, the claims made by the guy in this video are entirely compatible with what I just read. His hay fever went away, or did it? Perhaps it's just the case that his allergy, his hay fever, has reduced to such an extent that it is essentially unnoticeable. And again, that's entirely commensurate with the science on the question. A science which, as the article points out, is still in its infancy. We still don't know an immense amount about allergies. But again, we come back to the root fallacy. This guy was given a homeopathic remedy, and then his hay fever went away. Ergo, homeopathic remedies are effective, right? Wrong. That is a correlation, and it does not demonstrate causation. This is no different at the level of principle from him going into his tent on that same trip and saying a prayer to the Almighty, and then his hay fever goes away. God cured me of my hay fever. Guys, correlation is not causation. Causation must be demonstrated, which is why homeopathic remedies, if they're going to be shown to be effective, have to be shown to be effective within a scientific setting. A double-blind trial can reveal whether or not these remedies are impactful. And when you do those studies, they come up wanting. This guy is just making a big fat assertion based on the root fallacy, which is the mistake of assuming that correlation equals causation. There is no good reason to assume that there's a causal connection between the pill he received and the disappearance or reduction of his hay fever. It's that simple. Let's continue.
Now, for me, this was impossible. This went against everything that I'd been taught at Cambridge for 6 years.
Well, then you mustn't have been taught very well about the nature of allergies. That's all I can say there. It doesn't go against everything that we know about allergies, and it's certainly not impossible. It is a very well-established fact and phenomenon that allergies can reduce and sometimes go away altogether through exposure. Now, sometimes said exposure can kill the person with the allergy, anaphylaxis, right? The overreaction of the body's immune system. But every now and then, through mild exposure over time, a person can actually develop a tolerance for the allergy that they have. And again, there's no reason to suppose that these candidate explanations don't belong in this gentleman's story. But instead, he's now making claims about the impossibility of what occurred. I'm sorry, but I can't take you seriously. You have all, speaking of symptoms, you have all of the symptoms of a person who doesn't have a fucking clue about what they're talking about.
I couldn't understand how this could happen, but it had happened. And so I had to explore this. I had to go and find out how this worked. And now I have a homeopathy-only practice, and the only thing I do is give nutritional advice and give homeopathy. I continue to use homeopathy for three reasons, really. One is because I absolutely love it. It's taught me so many things I've never learned anywhere else.
I hope I never meet a doctor who says to me, one reason why I'm giving you this medicine is because I love it. I hope I don't have to explain to you, dear listener, why that's a disconcerting statement. But yeah, let's continue.
I'm not just reading veterinary manuals, I'm reading philosophy, I'm reading quantum physics, and particularly I'm reading about nature and the natural world, because that's where all the remedies come from. And to really understand the remedy, you need to understand its position and how it functions in the natural world.
Yeah, that's called science, which you appear to be oblivious about.
This has reconnected me to my earliest love, because the reason I became a vet is I decided when I was 4 because of a love of nature and a love of animals, and that sort of got lost in the teaching and the studying and the learning you have to do to become a vet.
Oh, that nasty third level institution making you do all that learning and reading all them books. Fuck's sake. Oh my God, I've mentioned on the channel before that we live in a post-truth world and how it's more fashionable now than ever to attack scientific consensus and to attack evidence and institutions that do their best to stick steadfastly by the principles of the scientific method. And no better example could I ever have shown than what this guy just said. Oh, in university, that, you know, I lost, you know, my soul and my spirit and my love for healing because they were just making me do all this reading and learning and research. Yeah, you bet your fucking bottom dollar they made you do all that learning and reading and research. Clearly you didn't do enough of it because you think that water is a cure for illness. You imbecile. How dare you? How dare you sit there and attack institutions of higher learning? How dare you suggest that their focus on evidential standards, the scientific method, and rigorous research and dedication, how dare you suggest that those things are to one extent or another a negative, or that to focus on those is to one extent or another a fool's errand? How dare you? You are absolutely insane. I just cannot get over the condescension to look at your scientific colleagues who actually put in the work, who do the research, who get their work peer-reviewed and go through the proper scientific channels and research robustly, to smirk at that and to, you know, throw your condescending gaze upon it and to suggest that that is a fool's errand, to suggest that that is, to one extent or another, inappropriate. You are unbelievable. Meanwhile, while you tout unscientific garbage, this is appalling. This is absolutely appalling. The idea that you would attack these institutions of higher learning is just sickening. What's wrong? Did your homeopathic suggestion not pass peer review? Does it fail in the double-blind trial? Were those nasty smart scientists who do all that book learning, were those people mean to you? Did they not embrace your ideas because they're shit? Give me a break.
I also keep doing it because it's very important, because it works, but it works by way that we don't as yet understand. There's many theories, but we don't understand how it works. But it's a deep and it's a powerful mechanism of healing.
And there you go. He doesn't understand how it works. Now, let me be fair here. I don't know how my phone works, yet it works. But I can demonstrate that my phone works. I could gather you all around me, and I can make a phone call, and I could speak to somebody on the opposite side of the planet. Right? I could demonstrate that it works. I could show you, undeniable evidence. The evidence of your eyes and ears would be undeniable. I could show you that a phone is effective. I have no idea how it works. I could tell you that it communicates with a satellite, but I don't know how a fucking phone does that. I don't know how it works. I don't know how microchips work. I don't know how it's feasible or possible that I can hear a person's voice on the other side of the planet 60 seconds from now by just dialing in a number. That technology is bamboozling to me. I don't understand it, but yet I know it works. So I'm not going to criticize this guy for saying that he doesn't know how it works, but it works. The bit I'm going to take issue with is he's claimed that it works. He hasn't demonstrated that it works. What he has is a whole bunch of correlations. If you see enough of patients, and if you give enough of them homeopathic remedies, you are going to have correlations. You're going to have coincidences. Like in the previous video, the woman who went back for no less than 4 homeopathic remedies, and on the 4th one achieves some semblance of a positive result, and then deduces that, it must be the homeopathic remedy that worked there. Yeah, of course that's going to happen. If I keep praying for rain, eventually one of my prayers is going to coincide with the rain. Who knew? Right? This is insane. This is just absolute irrationality at its finest.
And finally, I keep doing it because of the patients. To be able to treat an unhappy dog or a depressed horse or an aggressive cow with maybe an unpleasant physical ailment, and you give it something, and over the period of days to weeks to maybe to a month, you see it get better.
A key admission. Days to weeks to months.
You give it something, and over the period of days to weeks to maybe to a month.
You're telling me that if you give a thimble of water to an angry cow or animal over days to weeks to months, and then their anger goes away, you're telling me that you're going to attribute that success to the thimble of water? How is this principally different from the claim made by the woman in the previous video? How is this principally different from praying for the same thing every day and then it happens a month from now? Guys, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is like, this is a principle that's used by magicians, and speaking as a magician, I think I'm uniquely placed to comment on this. I've told this story before, but I'll give you the abridged version right now. When I do gigs, when I do weddings and I go and I do magic for guests and so on, I very often walk up to tables holding the Queen of Hearts with the face facing myself and the back facing the audience. And I usually pick out a lady at the table and I ask her to name a card that she feels says something about her. Now, she might not say the Queen of Hearts, and if she doesn't, I've never drawn attention to the fact that I'm holding a card, so I just move on. But if I get it right, if she says, Queen of Hearts, and I turn the card over, I say, yeah, I thought you'd say that. It can be quite impressive. And the manner in which they remember it makes it even more impressive, because they don't remember that I said, think of a card that says something about yourself. What they remember is that he said, just think of any card, and I named the Queen of Hearts, and that was the one he was holding. It was a miracle. But the key thing here is, in terms of the analogy, is if I approach 30 tables on a particular night holding the Queen of Hearts, and I ask 30 different ladies at those 30 different tables to name any card, or to name a card that says something about themselves, I have increased my odds of being successful with my guess just enormously, right? In fact, with that many tables and that many guesses, what would be strange is if I never got it right. This is principally the same thing that's going on with the homeopathic remedies. If you keep giving the cow your homeopathic remedy over a period of months, well, you're just biding your time. The odds that the cow's issue might resolve on its own through the cow's natural immune system or what have you, the odds that that's going to go away by itself over that extended period goes up and up and up and up and up, and you're just giving yourself multiple chances. It's like the fortune teller's fallacy. The fortune teller says that, oh, you're going to come into some money. And so each passing week where you don't get more money is just said to be, oh, the prediction hasn't come true yet. So the fortune teller can never be wrong. It's either that the prediction has come true or it hasn't come true yet. At no point will the fortune teller accept that the prediction was falsified and shown to be erroneous. It's just that it hasn't come true yet. If you keep giving the homeopathic remedy to the cow, you can say the same thing. Oh, it just hasn't worked yet. 1 month in, hasn't worked yet. Month and a half, oh, the cow is showing signs of relief. Ah, see, my homeopathic remedy is starting to kick in. How is this not just the epitome of irrationality, guys? How is this not just the biggest, fattest, sickest, stupidest joke? Now, one possible response you might have for me here, you might say, but Magic Skeptic, what if they give the homeopathic remedy and it cures the malady in the first instance? Wouldn't that address your fortune teller fallacy point? Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And that's a fair response. But even then, you just have a correlation. Now, if every time you give that homeopathic remedy to somebody and the illness that you're targeting goes away in the first instance, now we have a very interesting observation. An observation that would require further study to determine the efficacy of what you're giving them. I will grant you that. But that's not what happens with homeopathy. There is no sacrosanct, effective homeopathic cure that works in the first instance. Not one has ever been verified. Not one has ever passed scientific peer review in a double-blind trial. So if you find that, you let me know, because then you'll have intrigued me. Then we'll have something worthy of discussion. But until then, all you have is a list of fallacies, assertions, grounded in a foundation of irrationality.
There's no better... There's nothing I'd rather do.
And you know what? Finishing on a positive note with this video, I can see that he was quite moved in his final comments there. I don't think this guy is evil. I don't think he's a scumbag. I don't think he's setting out to harm or hurt anybody. I think he's just honestly mistaken. I think he's wrong. I think he has fallen victim to the tried and true medieval, arguably just intrinsically human flaw, which is our assumption that correlation equates with causation. It dates back to the infancy of our species. The rainmaker throws his hands up into the air and it starts to rain. Therefore, we assume that the rainmaker is responsible for the rain. We forget all the times that he did so and nothing happened. And the rainmaker, if he's clever, has an explanation for all those failed attempts. Oh, I just didn't have the energy in me today. Or, you know, the gods aren't listening, or God is angry with us, and etc., etc. But again, it goes back to the infancy of our species. It goes back to the medieval period where they believed that trepanning was an effective method. Right? Where they believed that praying or flagellation, where monks used to go around whipping themselves in the back to escape the bubonic plague, proving to God, look, I'm punishing myself, you don't need to give me the bubonic plague. And then if a monk who did that to themselves didn't get the plague, oh, correlation, therefore let's all go flagellate ourselves. This is the root fallacy, guys. It is intrinsic to human thinking. We are pattern-seeking animals. It goes all the way back to our evolution on the savannas of Africa, where it's better to assume that the rustling in the bushes behind you is a lion. It's better to assume that than to assume that it's the wind. It's better to assume agency than to assume the wind, because if you assume the wind and you're wrong, you get eaten. It's arguably intrinsic to our survival. We are pattern-seeking animals, and we bear the stamp of our lowly origin. And this is why we must be skeptical. This is why we must correct for this mechanism in our brains, because it leads us to the conclusion that homeopathy is a successful method. It leads us to the erroneous conclusion that prayer is effective, and a whole host of other nonsenses that have grown up with our species. So with those two videos addressed, guys, I want to start getting to the conclusion here, because I've been running on now for quite some time. I want to get to the conclusion here, and I want to address some of the consequences. I found an article that I want to share with you guys. Now, if you Google homeopathy patient dies, if you Google those words, homeopathy patient dies, I'm very sad to report that you will find thousands and thousands of results dating back decades. I just for the sake of being contemporary, have sourced an article from 2020, July 2020. So it's just a couple of years old at the time of recording. I'm trying to be as contemporary as I can. And I just did a quick 30-second Google. I could probably find more recent examples, but this was just one of the first results that popped up, and I'll include it in the description below. But again, I'm very sad to report that there are thousands of stories of people dying because they went for homeopathic remedies instead of the actual conventional proven medical alternatives, the actual medicines that work. So this article is titled "Families of Cancer Patients Who Died After Rejecting Conventional Medicine to Spend Thousands on Homeopathy Blast Clinics Who Radicalized Them," with one owner recorded on camera saying, "A lump won't kill you." Christ above. So I'm just going to read for a moment here and you guys can be the judge. Families of cancer patients who died after rejecting conventional treatments at hospital and spending thousands on alternative remedies, including homeopathy, claim their loved ones may still be alive if it wasn't for dangerous clinics that radicalized them in a shocking new documentary. In one scene during BBC Three's False Hope, Alternative Cancer Cures, an owner of a thermal imaging clinic in Liverpool is recorded saying "a lump won't kill you" to an undercover reporter posing as a patient with suspected breast cancer. Lorna Halliday, a senior scientist at Cambridge University, told how her mother Linda was given really good survival odds if she underwent a mastectomy followed by chemo and radiotherapy when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Instead, Linda turned down the recommended NHS treatments and started taking alternative medicines such as mistletoe injections from a number of alternative practitioners. She died in 2014. Having always been wary of conventional medicine, Lorna said Linda visited Medical Thermal Imaging Limited in Liverpool to help her monitor the growth and spread of her cancer using thermal imaging. She claimed the clinic's co-founder, Philip, who was married to the other co-founder, Rosa, became her mother's homeopath. Lorna said she feels her mother was given a false sense of belief, adding, "Philip would prescribe her a new homeopathic treatment, so I think she was reassured that she was doing something. She spent a lot of money, thousands of pounds on it, and that was really difficult to see how much she was spending on supplements and these thermal imaging treatments." When her disease progressed, Lorna told how a doctor warned her mother she had an ulcerating tumour. The doctor said, "You have an open wound," and told Mum the truth. "And I know that Mum was very emotional and very upset," Lorna recalled. "I think she knew it was probably too late and couldn't face the truth about what was happening, but I think part of her knew." Having noticed Linda was behaving strangely, Lorna called her and urged her to see a doctor. She said, "No, I'm in regular contact with a homeopath from Liverpool." And at that point, I got a big cross and said, "Mum, homeopathy doesn't work." And she went quite quiet at that point. But we said our goodbyes, and that was the last time I spoke to her. Linda died a couple of days later. An inquest found she had septicemia caused by the ulceration of her tumour. Asked if Linda would be here now had she not turned down conventional treatment, Lorna replied, "Absolutely." Sean Walsh, a keen musician, also sought help from medical thermal imaging. He had spent less than 2 years in remission following a grueling 6 months of chemotherapy, but his cancer returned and required additional chemo with a stem cell transplant. Doctors told him he had at least a 50% chance of long-term survival if he went ahead with the conventional treatment. But Sean's mother, Dawn, told how he didn't want to do it all over again. She remembered a chance encounter with a homeopath, Phil, whom she claimed told her he'd successfully treated his wife Rosa for breast cancer. Dawn went along to the first appointment where she claims Phil was talking about how damaging chemotherapy is on the human body. He was saying, "I've had lots of people come to my clinic, but by the time I got them, they're shot with all this chemotherapy, so I can't help them." And then he was talking about how you can change your diet, she said. Amy said he became obsessed with what he was eating, believing it could cure his cancer, and had regular thermography scans at Rosa and Philip's clinic, which he believed was tracking his condition. He was avoiding certain vegetables, certain fruits, and the list of things he ate went smaller and smaller, and some days he wouldn't eat anything because he was scared of what he shouldn't eat, she said, adding that the scans were Sean's evidence, his hope, his confirmation that it was working. Sean also visited a clinic in Mexico which takes a nutritional approach to curing cancer. Dawn and Amy told how reading his reports from the clinic made him believe his cancer had gone. The documentary found the company kept his testimonials on its website after he passed away. When his condition took a turn for the worst in 2017, Dawn rushed him to hospital where doctors found he had excessive fluid buildup and a tumour the size of a grapefruit in his stomach, as well as tumours in his chest. He was started on chemo, but it was too late. Sean was in and out of hospital for a year, but the cancer had spread too much and there was nothing more medics could do. So guys, I could keep reading here, but I think you get the message loud and clear. These places, these homeopaths and these so-called clinics which deal in natural medicines are incredibly destructive. They're incredibly dangerous because there are people in the world who are going to take your claims seriously. There are people in the world who, upon hearing that water is the cure and that water has memory, there are people who are going to take that seriously. There's a lot of people in the world who are not skeptical, and they see you in a white lab coat with fancy letters before your name, doctor this, doctor that, and they see you touting homeopathic remedies, and they're going to take it seriously. And in lieu of actual relevant cancer treatment or treatment for whatever problems they have, they're going to go to you. And if you cannot see the danger here, dear listener, if I have done nothing to dissuade you of the obvious danger here, well then, I failed. I just hope that the video that I've made here goes some way towards convincing at least one person who might have been convinced by this stuff. I hope this video does something to dissuade you and to make you realize that if and when you're sick, you go to a real hospital, a hospital that has at its foundation scientific research, a hospital that has at its epicenter a rigorous application of the evidence, evidence-based, peer-reviewed science, which reveals the efficacy of real medicine and removes the correlation equates with causation tendency that exists in all of these so-called natural remedies. So guys, that's everything I wanted to say on this topic. Like usual, this channel ends up being a kind of a vehicle for me getting things off my chest, an outlet for me to speak my mind. And having encountered this person that I spoke about in the opening of the video, who was essentially championing the claims of these so-called natural remedies and how it's all just a matter of what works for you might not work for me and so on, I felt it was important, if only as a public service announcement, to put something out there in the hopes that somebody somewhere might see this and have their mind changed. And, you know, potentially this video could save a life. I don't want to sound self-congratulatory or sound like I'm, you know, giving myself a big head here. That's not the goal. I genuinely care about the world and the people in it. And if this video convinces at least one person that those natural remedies that they're considering are bogus and that they should actually go and see their GP and go to hospital, if only one person changes their mind as a consequence of having seen this video, I'll consider my job a job well done. But guys, what do you think? Would you have addressed these videos the way I did? Do you agree with me? Could I have done better? If you think that I've missed something, please do jump into the comments below and let me know your thoughts. I would love to have a conversation. Perhaps you feel I didn't do a good enough job criticizing the claims of the various homeopaths that I've addressed in this video. Perhaps you agree with me and you want to tell me why. Whatever your thoughts, jump into the comments below and let me know. That's where the meat of this channel really is. It's in that comment section below, and I relish each and every opportunity to discuss with you guys your thoughts, and so I'll look forward to that. If this is your first visit to the channel, do consider hitting the subscribe button, and while you're at it, don't forget to check the bell notification icon. That way you'll be able to stay up to date with all things on the channel, and you'll even be notified as and when my latest videos go live. So guys, thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. All the best. Bye bye.